Hey everybody, this is Ryan Deal with 605 Sports. We are joined by John Akre with 605 Sports. It's been a while since we've done one of these. Did a few of them during the amateur baseball season, and we're going to talk some high school football. The playoffs are gearing up. We got 11B and the nine-man classes starting their first round playoff games, and John's been up in that Brookings area covering a lot of high school football for us. So long time South Dakota, but this is his first fall covering high school football for us. And John, how are things been going for you? First year covering high school football in South Dakota.
It's been awesome. I've mainly been, on the broadcasting side of things, growing up in Parkston, but I was able to jump in last year during the championships for football, but this has really been the first full season for me to get on the sidelines and talk to players and be able to do some stories on some kids. So it's been great up there in the Brookings area or up in here in the Brookings area, and looking forward to the playoffs here as well.
Yep, absolutely. John's been doing some good stuff, so keep following along for his stories up there, and the rest of the 605 crew. We're gonna have some more playoff coverage coming up on Thursday and everything. All right, let's talk about some of these classes with the nine men and the 11B ranks. 9B, John, the Rapid St. Mary's and Avon, I think it's safe to say, have kind of separated themselves from the pack. Sully Buttes, defending champs, returned a lot off that team from last year. Took a loss late in the season to Harriet Selby area, so that dropped them down there to number 5 in the standings and everything. But when you look at 9B, is it kind of safe to say that it feels like the Rapid St. Mary's and Avon could be on a collision course for the Dome?
Yeah, I got the chance to see St. Mary's twice this year, and I mean they just look like a well-oiled machine. I mean I watched them against Iroquois Lake Preston, and they scored 78 points on them, and then they played a tough ranked team against Alcester Hudson later in the year. Just their efficiency, I mean especially with Tremere Hansen, who's just kind of you can plug and play wherever you want to put him, and he'll go to work. I mean he might be one of the most productive players in nine-man football. So I think St. Mary's has really found a groove this year, and they're really trying to make it back to that first state championship since 2021. Obviously, been 4 or 5 years, but I mean, I think they're on a prime course back to the Dome.
Yeah, and I saw Avon play earlier this year. Couple big defensive ends, Al Shimon Gunter and Jamie Pelton, 6'6" and 6'8" or whatever they are. So they cause some matchup problems out there in nine-man football. And talked about Sully Buttes in Class 9B. There's not been a repeat champ since 03, 04. So this goes to show you a lot of parity in the state's smallest class. So Sully Buttes is certainly trying to buck that trend, so to say, and repeat this season. I guess a matchup 9B. Is there a matchup we're kind of looking forward to in 9B, I guess?
I think it's kind of just the usual 8 versus 9. That one kind of always seems to drum the most interest, or at least the most competitive games in the first round there, and obviously with Corsica and Kadoka, I mean that's an unfamiliar matchup. I don't even know how far of a drive it is between the two, but obviously sort of an East River versus West River. Corsica's starting to find their stride here towards the end of the year. They took a loss just last week though to Platte Geddes. Both teams coming in winning 3 of their last 4, and they both have been solid programs these last few seasons in 9B. So. I think that one will be one to keep an eye on in that quarterfinal or in that first round, excuse me.
Yeah. And then we should also talk just real quick, Sioux Falls Lutheran, fun story for those guys. Second season of varsity football, and they've qualified for the playoffs. 5-3 record, I believe they pieced together. Obviously played some tough teams and won some games, and so here they are. Going to host in Iroquois Lake Preston in the first round in a game that'll be in T area. So cool story for the Eagles down there. 9A, Wall and Warner, the only 2 undefeated teams left standing in that class, and both those teams have just look at what they've done, especially Wall outscoring their opponents by like 51 points per game. Just put together another solid season. Made the semifinals last year. Didn't quite get there. Lost to Woolsey Wessington. When you look at 9A, safe to say Wall and Warner have definitely kind of separated themselves from the pack in that one.
especially Wall. The last 6 games, Wall has allowed 6 total points. And that was Stanley County. They gave up 6 points on September 26th. So that, I mean, they pitched five shutouts in their last 6 games. And obviously, this is a team that has that championship pedigree that recently won a championship in 9AA when they were up that class, a couple years back. But I would say they're definitely the heavy favorites in 9A. But you obviously have a team like Warner that is another team, recently champs. They've, 8-0 record, number 2 seed. That's also a team to keep an eye on at the top.
Yeah. And then another team, feels like they took a loss right at the beginning of the season, took one right at the end of the season. Is Howard. Defending champs, perennial power. Kind of weird to say, but do they feel like a sneaky a 7 seed, I guess?
Well, I think you can't ever count them out. With what they got going on in Howard and the tradition of football in Howard, it's a team you never want to see in the postseason for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And then a game to watch, 9A, Lyman, Platte Geddes. Obviously, second time they played this season. I was at the first matchup. It ended up being Platte Geddes won 64-28, but that game was really back and forth at the beginning there. Some trading, some touchdowns, but then Platte Geddes just kicked it into another gear with Jai Bailey and Keenan Kuiper just really stealing the show on that one. So I don't know if we're gonna have a similar type game with this one, or sometimes just never know. It might be defense kind of rules that one. So certainly one to keep an eye on it in 9A. 9AA, Elkton Lake Benton and Freeman Academy. They played earlier this season. I covered that game and I tweeted something to the effect of sign me up for the rematch. And so now they're obviously the 1 and the 2 seeds. And you've seen some of these other teams in 9AA as well. How do you see 9AA kind of shaking out?
Well, I think it is sort of a set in stone thing now that Freeman and Elkton have really separated themselves from the pack. The Phoenix, they've kind of been building this program for a few years now, and they've obviously never won a championship as this co-op. Obviously, Freeman has with the Canastota as well. But what I've seen out of teams like Elkton Lake Benton is that they just play very physical and are able to really just mow down opponents quickly. Colt Beck, the quarterback for Elkton Lake Benton, I thought there was going to be a little bit of a back and forth game there with Hamlin in the last week of the season, and Colt Beck just turns it on, and I think he scored 5 straight touchdowns to start that game, and I mean it was over at that point. So I think you look at those two teams, and they should be on a collision course for the Dome, barring any sort of upsets.
Yeah. 9AA's has been fun the last few years. To me, it feels like it's the most competitive 9-man class. You look at some of the semifinal matchups through the years. Sometimes it's all 4 teams are undefeated. A couple of teams with 1 losses here and there. So certainly going to be fun to see how 9AA shakes out. First round matchup, Britton Hecla and Kimball White Lake, kind of similar to the Kadoka Corsica matchup. 2 teams unfamiliar with each other. They play each other. I don't think any common opponents, anything like that. Maybe a couple teams even flying under the radar a little bit. Kimball White Lake, I know they took some losses. I think they had a 3-game losing streak at one point, but they played a murderer's row of Parkston, Bonholm, and Platte Geddes. And I know in a couple of those games they were battling some sickness and some injuries and those type of things. So I've seen Kimball White Lake play this year. They certainly looked apart. Johnny Lenz is a dynamic running back, and Britton Hecla. It's been a while since I think they've kind of reached this point. They won the state championship here not too long ago, 5-6 years ago, I think it was, and now they've kind of risen back up through the ranks and everything. So that'll be a fun one to see how that one plays out when you got 2 teams unfamiliar with each other and everything. Who are some other teams in 9AA? A couple teams made the Dome last year, and there they are, kind of looming, middle of the pack there with some of these other playoff contenders.
Well, like I said too, is just those 2 top teams. I mean, barring any upsets, and I think the 2 biggest teams that you need to look out for are your 2 recent 9AA champions in Parkston and Hamlin. Parkston, I mean, the program that Coach Matt Grave has built there has been exceptional the last 3 seasons. They've made the Dome each of the last 3 seasons, winning one in that 2023 season. And then obviously Hamlin, watching them against Elkton Lake Benton last week, that was the first chance I got to see sort of this new team. They had a lot of seniors graduate last year. I mean, they're still dangerous. Don't get that score sort of twisted about, oh, it seems like Elkton is just significantly better. I mean, they still have Jackson Wadsworth, returning 9AA All-State quarterback, and he can still sling the rock well. And he's just a big physical quarterback that, he still can use his legs and is just as dangerous there. So, I mean, you look at those two teams, especially with just the history and the playoffs that they've had these past few years. I mean, you don't obviously want to count those guys out.
Yep, absolutely. Championship pedigree from both those programs. So, like you mentioned earlier with Howard, I don't think I'd want to be playing either of those teams in the playoffs. So, it'll be fun to see how that shakes out. 11B, boy, this feels like Elk Point Jefferson is this kind of this maybe a notch or two above the rest of the field. You look at some of their wins, beating Wagner, winner, MVP, quality, 11B teams right there. 11B, what really stands out to you?
Well, like you said, I mean, EPJ, they have played maybe the toughest schedule in all of 11B, and they just continue to win and win and win. And they obviously have that championship history, the experience of knowing what it takes to get to the Dakota Dome. I think they're going to be just a tough out for anybody that they face along the way. And then obviously you have St. Thomas More, who, they're still trying. They made it to the Dome 6 times. They're 0-6 since their last appearance was in that 2014 championship game to Parkston. But I mean, barring whatever schedule that they obviously have, they're beating opponents at an exceptional, difference. The defense, especially allowing 3 points per game this season. That's going to be a team that's really hungry and should make a run in this playoffs.
Yeah. Last year they had a nice run there in the playoffs as well. Obviously returned a lot from that team from last year. So it'll be certainly interesting to see how far the Cavaliers can go this year. And like you said, kind of the Buffalo Bills of South Dakota high school football just haven't been able to get over the hump. So we'll see how it plays out for them this year. A matchup to look forward to is the Mobridge Pollock coming down to face Mount Vernon Plankinton in Mount Vernon. Boy, MVP had a nice win to close out the regular season last week, going on the road and beating Woonsocket, Weston Springs, Sanborn Central in a game that I was at, and used the term snowball, and it really just snowballed on the Bucks in the wrong direction. Everything was just going right for MVP. So those guys are playing with a lot of confidence right now, and that's going to be a fun matchup in the first round with Mobridge Pollock, who you look at their schedule, and it just got tougher kind of as the season went on there. Down the stretch, Clark-Willow Lake and Dual, playing those guys, and but Max Saxon, we've kind of talked off and on about him through the year. Just a big bruising running back that'll cause fits for MVP and everything. So that'll be certainly a first round matchup to keep an eye on in 11B. We got to close off 11B. I guess it wouldn't be 11B if we're not talking about the Winter Warriors. What have you seen from Winter this season, John?
Something that we haven't seen in a long time out of Winter. This is a Winter team that, I mean, everybody knows the history that has been built with Winter Warrior football, and I mean they're the 11 seed going into the playoffs this year. Most losses they've had in one season in 20 years, which is just crazy to think about, since they still have a winning record. They're 5-4 on the year, and this is technically the worst season they've had in 20 years. But especially with a team like Woonsocket, Weston Springs, Sanborn Central coming off that loss to MVP last week, they're going to need to look for answers quick, because you definitely do not want to see the Warriors come to town in the playoffs after losing a tough one like that last week.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be fun to see how that one plays out, and the rest of these first round matchups play out for the 9-man and the 11B ranks. And we should also mention that next week, the 11 AAA, 11 AA, and 11A will be their first round matchups. They will be finishing out the regular season this week. So we will be joining you guys again next week to break down all of the classes for South Dakota football and everything. And make sure to follow along this upcoming Thursday for all your coverage from 605 Sports. We'll be having some game stories and some photo galleries and everything like that. So make sure everybody follows along. So, all righty. Thanks, John. We'll talk next week.